It is that time again. We are back. We're going to be back doing some more jazz school, listening to some Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong. I am going to be one of your hosts for the evening, Mr. Levi Clay, and I am here with the woman that thinks she's the most attractive person in Glasgow, Melissa Kelly. How's it going?
How about you shut the fuck up? How about that? Me and Levi just had a conversation just before we came on, and I can't remember how we got there. We all, some kind of weird strain of consciousness. Yes, I did not say that I'm hotter than anyone else.
Just me, just hotter than me.
I was winding you up. If you poke the bear, I'm going to poke back.
Sure.
That was lovely.
So, my dear, how are you?
Yes, I'm good. I'm very excited actually that we're going to do more of these, and they're more geared towards jazz musicians because I watch guitar solos and I love guitar solos and I love Mike, and hi Mike, and I'm not trying to replace you, my beard is not nearly glorious enough, but yeah, I watch guitar solos and sometimes I'm like, I don't know who that is, and then I have to go and Google who that is. So it's nice to be here and talking about people I actually know.
I'm just tweaking the levels here so our voices are a little bit louder. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, cool. That should maybe do a little bit better.
Never had that problem if people want me to be louder.
No, exactly. Yeah, so we did the Sidney Bechet stream 6 days ago now. Wasn't quite 7. I just had so much fun doing that. I wanted to do another one almost immediately. So here we are doing another one.
Yay.
And yeah, as I mentioned on that stream, the concept was very simple. It was raised by one of my patron students, Leon. We were talking about jazz and how he doesn't understand the difference between, lots of different subgenres of jazz. Jazz has a long history, a very, very long history, 100-year history. A lot happens in the evolution of a sound over 100 years. And to him, jazz is just jazz, like it's all under the same category. And, for most people that will be watching this, you're probably rock fans, metal fans, you all know that there's a big difference between thrash metal and brutal death metal, or there's a really big difference between neoclassical metal and punk rock. And you could just put them all under the category of rock music, sure. You would be doing jazz the same disservice if you just put it all under the same category. There is a lot of different things going on in jazz, and these streams seek to look at some of those differences between styles and, more importantly, the history and the evolution of the sound. So last time, why don't you give us a rundown? Last time we did Sidney Bechet, if you could give us a quick kind of 30-second recap on who Sidney was and why he was important and where he fits in the timeline of jazz.
So Sidney Bechet was a clarinetist, and the thing was he came out actually before Louis Armstrong, which was something that we were talking about and talking about the contribution that he made. But as far as jazz is concerned, he is very melodic player. He plays to the song. He's a lead instrument. And the other thing is that if you're not entirely sure where to start with jazz, Sidney Bechet is a really good starting point because he's a very sort of the melodic stuff that he plays is very accessible. It's not like incredibly chaotic, hard-going, Mingus or Miles Davis or anything like that. It's definitely it's beautiful songs. Some of the time they're only 3 minutes long, and his playing is a masterclass in phrasing. It's a masterclass in.
Going to cut you off there. You've had your 30 seconds. No, I'm kidding.
What an arse!
Yeah, I know. Hello, ADG. Thank you for tuning in, bud. Yeah. Come back and watch the rest of it at some point. I'm sure you'll have a great time. You're totally right. But he's pre-Louis Armstrong. Louis Armstrong, often back in the day, would be considered the ambassador of jazz music.
Ambassador. That's a great word for that.
He had he was known as the ambassador for jazz music. He was one of the first kind of really big crossover artists. When we talk crossover, here's a horrifying thing about human history, right? We're not talking about the crossover from niche to mainstream. No. Because it's America, right? We're talking about the crossover from black to white people. Yeah. So Louis Armstrong was one of the first kind of big names that really crossed over and became popular among white music listening audiences. And that you could do a lot of reading into him. There's definitely a lot of interesting stuff that you could tell around that happened regarding Satchmo and his history with race relations and things like that. He was a big supporter of the civil rights movement, but not in the going out and being an activist kind of way. And he was often criticised for that. He was a financial supporter. He put a lot of money into that cause. I do remember reading somewhere in an interview at one point, he said that and a horrifying thing to say, really, that he would love to be out there on the marches, on the lines, etc., front lines. But he acknowledged that putting yourself in those situations is a dangerous place to put yourself, and you will be, you're at risk of being beaten if that happens. And if that happens to him, then the police are just going to beat him in the mouth. And if he gets beaten in the mouth, he can't blow his horn anymore. And you're like, yeah.
I've never struggled for anything.
Yeah, so definitely an important figure, though, in the history of jazz crossing over and becoming a more mainstream sound. And I keep talking about Louis Armstrong as though this is the focus of the stream. Initially, when we did Sidney Bechet last time, we were like, okay, where should we go next? And I was like, well, maybe we could do Django because Django's good fun. And then I said, well, maybe we should do Louis Armstrong because they are a similar period. But you wanted to do Duke Ellington, right? So the focus today was initially just Duke Ellington, and we were going to listen to Blues in Orbit.
Yeah. Blues in Orbit, which is a totally amazing album. It is on Spotify, which is great because some of the albums for Duke Ellington that I think are the best, like Unknown Sessions, you can't get Unknown Sessions on Spotify. You can't get it online. I think you might get it on YouTube if you're lucky. But Blues in Orbit's a really fantastic album. Oh my lord, it's that wonderful part of Duke's playing where he's definitely still playing in a sort of classical sense of the stuff that he did for like Cotton Club and when he was playing with all the musicians out of there, but it's moving more towards a modern feel, and a modern feel for harmony as well as just everything else. So it's really fabulous album.
Yeah. So I was quite happy to do a stream just on Duke, but of course Duke is one of, well, let's say the king of all, Sir Duke.
Yay! Yeah.
There's Basie, Miller, Satchmo, and the king of all, Sir Duke.
And the king of all, Sir Duke.
Yeah.
With a voice. No, I'm going to start.
You should. Do it. Go on.
There's Basin, and Satchmo, and the king of all, Sir Duke. And with a voice like Ella's ringing out, there's no way to beg or lose.
Yeah.
And the
So, of course, yes, Duke Ellington, dubbed the title of Sir Duke by Stevie Wonder, of course, an incredibly important name in the history of jazz. And I would argue, although he might not be the same kind of face of jazz that Louis Armstrong was, in terms of compositional influence, Duke Ellington is one of the greats and one of the most important artists of the genre. And I'm going to prove it by pointing out that, so we have like the real book. If you learn jazz, if you know anything about jazz, you've probably seen a real book at some point in your life. There's only a few artists that have these. Duke Ellington has his own real book. Duke Ellington has written so many standards, wrote so many songs that are considered to just be standards of the genre, that there's an entire real book devoted to Duke Ellington's music. And he's a difficult one to kind of talk about on a stream like this for that reason. You want to listen to Blues in Orbit, and honestly, the only reason I didn't go with that, it's a great recording, and I recommend you do go and check it out. It doesn't have so many of his well-known tunes on there.
No, it doesn't. It's definitely a more B-side album. It's definitely an album that was created as, because this is the thing with Duke Ellington. I think there was a lot of parts of Duke Ellington's career where he was caught between being an entertainer and being a musician.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of music that he made because he knew, especially in America at that time, it would get him work, it would get him paid, it would get him to sell records, it would get him out there. Whereas Blues in Orbit feels like the kind of album he was making because for the pure joy of composing music, and not for the sort of pandering to the audiences that were going to make sure that he kept being employed as a musician.
Yeah.
Which is why I love it. Go and listen to it. Not right now.
So in the end, I decided that we were going to listen to the complete Louis Armstrong, the Duke Ellington sessions. So this was released in 1990. Obviously, they've recorded a lot of things together over the years. There's an album they have called The Reunion, which is also on Spotify, which features a lot of these tracks. But in the end, I was looking at, well, maybe we could do like The Reunion, and then we could do another album, another short album, and listen to the two albums, because the point is so many different things going on in Duke's sound. But then, like I say, Louis Armstrong is an incredibly important name, an incredibly important voice at the start of jazz and the popularization of jazz. So it seemed right that we kind of do some Louis Armstrong. And of course, not just a trumpet player, but a singer. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say about his voice.
So much to say about it.
Fantastic.
Too much to say about it.
Right, so before I do the Wikipedia thing, I'll bring that up in a second. I am just going to say a massive thank. In fact, you say a massive thank you. You talk to these people and say thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the following people who I'm going to pick at random. Leon, thank you so much. Manny, Tom, you're a gem. Nay, you're a god. Adam, you'll be reincarnated as something wonderful for all your good deeds. Kai, Mike, Chris. Yeah, thank you so much for supporting. Dave, Larry, there's a great name. Chris, Jake, Scott, Anna. Oh, there's a woman. A woman. Thank you very much to all of you.
Yeah, and if that doesn't suit you, if you don't want to check this out on Patreon, link in the description, you can also head on over and check out one of my books on Amazon. So, let's talk about Louis Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
And first point is, I keep saying Louis Armstrong.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Armstrong.
What?
Yes, Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong.
He went by both.
Okay.
With Louis being the more French pronunciation. It was actually Louis, by doing some reading on it, it was Louis Armstrong. But he was born and raised in New Orleans. So people see this and they're just going to assume Louis. He would respond to Louis as though it were a nickname.
As he should, because Louis Armstrong sounds like a dentist.
Yeah.
Louis Armstrong sounds like a musician.
I don't want to dig too deep into this Wikipedia page because, of course, he's so important to the genre. There's going to be so much stuff in here. But key things that I would point out, as I say, born in... he lied about this, actually. So 1901, August 4th, 1901, for the longest time, he used to tell people that he was born the 4th of July, 1900. As like the Yankee Doodle Dixie boy. Oh. That was his spiel, and then years later his birth certificate was uncovered, and no, he lied about that. So who knows what else he lied about.
He took creative license.
Yeah, and with that comes all of the other things that I'd say about the creative license side of things, like, okay, other nicknames would be Satchmo. Okay, so do you know where Satchmo comes from?
I don't know where Satchmo comes from.
Well, of course, he had a big mouth.
Mm-hmm.
People saw his big mouth, and he had a lot of nicknames when he was a kid. And one of those nicknames was Satchel Mouth. Satchel Mouth.
That feels unfair.
Which eventually got shortened to Satchmo. But that, of all the nicknames, that was one that he actually quite liked. So
okay.
He was okay with Satchel Mouth.
As long as he was okay with it, because it sounds kind of cruel. But, it's kind of like someone saying, I've got a big fat ass. I'm like, I'm cool with that. That's okay. I don't feel attacked by that.
Yeah, so I won't go into the details, but I'm just going to read the first part of this. So, Louis Daniel Armstrong, born 1901, nicknamed Satchmo, American trumpeter and vocalist who is among the most influential figures in jazz. His career spanned 5 decades and different eras in the history of jazz. Armstrong was born and raised in New Orleans, coming to prominence in the 1920s as an inventive trumpet and cornet player. Armstrong is a foundational influence in jazz, shifting the focus of the music from collective improvisation to solo performance. Around 1922, he followed his mentor, Joaquin Oliver, to Chicago to play in the Creole Jazz Band. In Chicago, he spent time with other popular jazz musicians, reconnecting with his friend Bix, is that Belderbeck?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Maybe. Spending time with Hoagie Carmichael.
Yeah. Sorry.
Lil Garden. And a reputation at cutting contests. His fame reached band leader Fletcher Henderson. Henderson persuaded Armstrong to come to New York City, where he became featured musically influenced band soloist, recording artist. Hardin became Armstrong's second wife. They returned to Chicago to play together. He began to form his own hot jazz bands. After years of touring, he settled in Queens. By the 1950s, he was a national musical icon, assisted in part by his appearance on radio and in film and television, in addition to his concerts. So, with his instantly recognisable, rich, gravelly voice, that's definitely a good description. A gravelly voice. An influential singer. I like that they went with influential singer and skillful improviser rather than skillful singer and
I'm gonna reserve my words.
I'm sure that you can have a lot that you can say about his voice. Let's also bring up Duke. So Duke Ellington, of course, not actually a Duke. Fun fact for you. Duke Ellington.
What?
Pronounced Beiderbecke.
Ah.
Thank you for that, HK.
Thank you, HK.
Would you like to read this?
Sure. Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington was born in the 29th of April 1899, was an American composer, pianist and leader of jazz orchestra, which he led from 1923 until his death over a career spanning more than half a century. Jesus Christ, was it really half a century? If someone described... Never mind. Born in Washington, D.C., Ellington was based in New York City from the mid-1920s onwards and gained a national profile through his orchestra's appearances at the Cotton Club in Harlem. In the 1930s, his orchestra toured in Europe. Although widely considered a pivotal figure in the history of jazz, Ellington embraced his phase beyond category as a liberating principle and referred to his music as part of a more general category of American music.
It's hard reading on camera, isn't it?
Well, do you know what it is? I don't need my this, so we'll talk about that. Fair. Some of the jazz musicians who were members of Ellington's orchestra, such as saxophonist Johnny Hodges, are considered among the best players in the idiom. Ellington's melded them into the best-known orchestra into the history of jazz. Some members stayed with the orchestra for several decades. A master of writing miniatures for the 3-minute 78 RPM recording format, Ellington wrote more than 1,000 compositions.
Oofed.
Ooh. His extensive body of work is the largest recorded personal jazz legacy, and many of his pieces have become standards. He also recorded songs written by his bandmen, for example, Oh Lord, Juan
Teozis. Okay, that's interesting because I thought Caravan was an Ellington tune. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Juan Teozis Caravan, and I can't say Perdido, which brought a Spanish tinge to the big band jazz. In the early 1940s, Ellington began a nearly 30-year collaboration with composer, arranger and pianist Billy Strayhorn, whom he called his writing and arranging companion. With Strayhorn, he composed many extended compositions suites. I can't see it from here, that's so bad. As well as additional short pieces.
I'm getting you in for an eye appointment.
It's so bad.
ADG is pointing out, where is Mike when you need somebody to read stuff?
Well, you know what? I need my tested. It's so bad. Where was I? I was too busy laughing about it. With him, he embarked on world tours. Ellington recorded for most American record companies of his era, performed and scored several films, and composed a handful of stage musicals. Ellington was noted for his inventive use of orchestra or big band and his eloquence in oh my good lord, where's Mike?
This is proving hard for you, so I'll finish up.
No. His reputation continued to rise after he died. He was awarded a posthumous Pulitzer Prize Special Award. You would never have got through that for music in 1999.
I just like the idea of stealing the last sentence.
To be fair, I am an old bitch and I cannot see. Good Lord.
Fair, yeah. So how did he die? That's the question. I didn't do this for Satchmo, but for some reason when I look at old guys like this, I always take an interest in how they died. So.
They're always really strange ways they died. It's like they were killed in a tram car accident.
No, lung cancer and pneumonia.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah. Well, I think just death in general is sad.
But that's
any legends of music. So that should give you an idea of of Duke Ellington. Any Ellington compositions that you would consider to be some of your favourites?
In a Sentimental Mood, I think is an amazing album. Some of the stuff off of that is. I think this is such a sort of I guess a kind of twee thing to say, but I do think it's really timeless because you could listen to it and it could easily be something that was written 80 years ago as much as it could be written something that had been written right now. The music off of it is just it is incredible. In a Sentimental Mood for sure. He's got a bunch of live albums that are particularly fantastic. In fact, I'm sure I've got a live album on record of his, and it's actually Satchmo that's there. It's in Pasadena in 1956, if I remember right. I might be right. And it's just hilarious because you can hear the band all shouting at each other, and they were entertainers. They weren't just musicians. They were part of on Wikipedia it does say that part of Duke's career was him working with an orchestra at the Cotton Club, the Cotton Club in Harlem. And, the Cotton Club in Harlem, for those of you that don't know, was a club that had exclusively black performers. And one of the things that it was, because, I've seen a lot of documentaries and things about the Cotton Club. I think it's fascinating. But one of the things was it was a main income for performers, but they couldn't just be a musician. They couldn't just be very good at their instrument. They had to be a performer. They had to be sharply dressed. They had to be a completely, like, a myriad of different things. They couldn't just turn up and perform. It was not or play.
Yeah, I would imagine the stereotypical zoot suit type thing.
Oh yeah, a little bit of that. Yeah. But yeah, a performer as well as a musician.
I've just flicked through the book to two of my favourite tunes. I think both of them are on this recording that we're about to listen to. One is It Don't Mean a Thing, of course.
Fantastic.
Classic tune. But my actual favourite is Drop Me Off in Harlem. I love Drop Me Off in Harlem. I wanted to listen to an album today that featured Ella singing, because there's a lovely rendition of her singing Drop Me Off in Harlem. And maybe that'll come. I mean, at some point we're definitely going to do a video just on Ella, aren't we? So, because how could you not?
The Queen.
Yeah. So, Duke Ellington, well worth checking out. As always, the link is in the description for this. I'm going to bring up the screen in face. You'll see some changes to this. Look. See that at the top? Look, we don't stream music. We don't own. We respect copyright. Spotify link in the description. So, link is in the description. If you would like to listen to this album along with us, please do that. And of course, do you enjoy the stream? Well, support us on Patreon. Link in the description. Or with super chat tips. I mean, you do have your own Patreon.
I do.
Support us on my Patreon. Because, put the money in the man's pocket and I'll take care of it. I'll give you your spending money each week.
I think out of sheer badness, you should all go and support me.
Yeah. Or not. So
somebody go and support me out of sheer badness, please.
Yeah, do it. The album is the Complete Louis Armstrong Duke Ellington Sessions. Check it out on Spotify. You won't hear the music when I press play. And if anybody jumps in the comments and still doesn't understand this concept, please, one of you good people that's watching this, please explain it to them. I really don't think it's difficult. I know people are willing to stream music they don't own, but that kind of makes the industry crumble. So I always say that right now we've got 11 people watching the stream currently, but if if we had 10,000 people watching this stream and they all went to Spotify and all streamed this album, well, it's probably not going in Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington's pockets, but the rights holder is getting that revenue. That's how the world turns, unfortunately. So, or fortunately, one would argue. So yes, shall we do this? And actually, we're trialing a new format for this to a degree. The thing I said about the last stream we did with the Sidney Bechet stream is we talked a lot while the music was on, and I want to do that again. So I don't want to leave a whole lot of dead air. Like, let's just keep the talking going, because there will be people that will listen to this without listening to the music. Feel free to sing. Feel free to imitate anything you can. Anything you'd like to, and other than that, have a good time. Okay, so right, let's have a look. Am I more afraid of the YouTube police or KDH? It's one of those things. To be completely honest with you, mate, I'm not afraid of the YouTube police in the slightest, because I do stream stuff when I'm doing a transcription, so I take no issue with getting copyright strikes. I don't do these things through fear of the punishment of doing the wrong thing. I do the right thing because integrity matters, Integrity. South Park reference. Okay, right. So we're going to start listening to this in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a good stream, guys. The comment I would make about a lot of the Duke Ellington stuff that you listen to, of course, because it's the Duke Ellington Orchestra most of the time that you're listening to, his part is often very back in that.
Yeah.
Okay, so do it. His voice. What is it you want to say about his voice?
So many things. I kind of don't have time. Thing is,
You've got plenty of time. You've got an hour.
when he's singing, it sounds as though he's really compressing the back of his throat. Like he's really...
Come on! Get your kicks in Duke's, please!
It does sound like he's doing... sorry, to imitate that, you would have to do that. But in actual fact, I don't believe that was ever what Louis Armstrong was doing.
Okay.
I do believe that what was naturally part of his voice was this almost feeling of, not to be disgusting for a second, but this almost feeling of phlegm on his vocal folds. When you have a lot of phlegm on your vocal folds, it sounds like that.
Okay.
Whereas when people, as you just did, when people go to imitate Louis Armstrong, they kind of go like that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe he was doing that. The other thing as well is, this is probably not the first time, or this is probably not the last time I'm going to mention it, but one of the people that Tom Waits was continuously compared to at the start of his career and his vocal prowess was Louis Armstrong.
Sure.
But Tom Waits was deliberately affecting that.
He was putting that on.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, putting it on, it was part of how he learned to sing because he loved the music he was doing. But he was putting that he was putting that on as far as he was creating that noise. That is absolutely part of Louis Armstrong's voice.
Okay.
It's a phlegmy sound on his vocal folds.
But here's the question: how do you feel about his voice?
I really love Louis Armstrong's voice. Okay. There's a kind of playful, naive. Like, there's some singers who, when they're singing, they just sound like they're talking to you. They're having a conversation with you. And Louis Armstrong's one of those singers. And I do love that. There seems to be no effort in how he sings. He's just telling us a story. Even when he's doing Wonderful World, he's just telling us a story. Yeah. He's just talking to us.
I don't even really think of him as a singer. Although his pitching is good for the most part, it does really feel like exactly as you put it there. Yeah. It feels like someone that's just is an entertainer and a character, so we'll take the microphone.
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, I can't compare the two because he is an insane singer, but another singer out of the Cotton Club at that time would have been Cab Calloway. Cab Calloway, when he performed, he would do very conversational. It was all about, creating a story and telling the audience a story and getting them involved in the story. Difference being is, Cab Calloway could sing his ass off and he could scat like a motherfucker. But it's singers of that period, not unlike Duke Ellington, as I was saying earlier. They're not just singers, they're supposed to be all rounds. It's not like nowadays you can get away with being a very precious singer who sort of stands on stage, closes your eyes and doesn't look at anyone and sings music all about that you're interested in, whereas back then it wasn't that. If for a minute Louis Armstrong thought he was going to get up and sing some quiet, precious thing that he cared about at the Cotton Club, it was never going to happen.
We are going to go through these comments, but I'm going to jump in with Andrea's comment, old friend and student of mine who... I got great stories about this kid, and I say kid because he's a man now and he's about to get his master's degree in jazz performance. Yeah. When I met this kid at the age of 15 or something like that, it was on a residential guitar course where I was one of the teachers, and he had a 7-string guitar with long hair, and he was a super shredder. He had all the sweep picking patterns down, and he just had it down like a motherfucker. And I taught him for good few years, and then he went off and studied at the institute, and then eventually he got it. The jazz thing clicked for him in a way that it didn't even for me. And he has become an actual jazz player now. And he's a great player. So if anyone's unfamiliar, please do go and check his work out. He's a great player. And his comment is that Louis Armstrong was an incredible trumpet player. We talked over all of the trumpet playing during that, and he was an incredible trumpet player. Not in the kind of way that most people think when you say incredible trumpet player. We've been listening to a load of Brecker brothers in the house over the last couple of weeks, so a lot of Randy Brecker. He's an incredible trumpet player. They're both incredible trumpet players, but from different schools. He was an incredible trumpet player for this school of playing, which is melody driven. Everything he played was melody driven. It was never about playing licks.
No,
he's not. He has elements of like what Miles would do, and Miles did other things as well. Miles actually quoted, I'm sure what Miles could be quoted as saying, "There's nothing that you can play on a trumpet that Louis Armstrong hasn't already played." And it's like, well, obviously that's not true.
Yeah.
But the sentiment is a good one because it maybe put you to kind of reinterpret the quote. There's nothing that you could play on a trumpet that's worth playing that Louis Armstrong hadn't already played. A player that just dragged along by melody, and that's a really good thing. And he has some licks in there, don't get me wrong, but none of them are like, kick the door down shred licks.
Yeah, but I think this is kind of like, and you know, I think some of the stuff that we've listened to that's Michael Brecker, the Brecker brothers, I think is really impressive and really interesting, and harmonies that I you know, have to sort of really listen to try and understand what's going on. But I think the one thing about that is, if that's maybe some of your first lead in to listening to jazz or jazz fusion, oh my God, you
Oh,
poor
that was my
bastard.
lead in. That was absolutely my lead in.
I'm so sorry. Who hurt you? I mean, who did that to you?
I mean, you know the answers to this.
All I'm saying is, I think that one of the things that some of these older players did, and I'm not romanticizing it too far, because I am aware that, you know, jazz progressed and people got
Sure.
you know, people got better, but they played to this song. Now, I realise I'm a songwriter, so I'm always going to say play to the song. Don't
Sure.
play for yourself. Don't play for, you know, play for the song. And I do think that kind of music's the other side of that. Still jazz, slightly different subset of jazz.
When you talk about play for the song, though,
Yeah.
a song isn't a sentient thing. You know, you don't literally mean play for the song. You're talking about what serves the song best,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And the thing that serves the song best depends on who's listening to the song and the audience that it's for.
Well, I
You know,
guess.
you can't take the Brecker Brothers Skunk Funk and have Louis Armstrong on that, because it's just so
Yeah.
up tempo, fast funk, with rapid changes that you to play to the song on that one, you got to play like a motherfucker. But I kind of take your point in that, and we've got the comment here: melody driven is my preference. Like
Yeah. Same.
that's the Melissa's comment about, like, if you get into jazz via the Brecker Brothers,
Yeah.
then, you know, I feel sorry for you. And I do get that, because it's very easy to do that and forget, or maybe not even understand, that all of this exists.
Yeah.
And to say, you know, oh, I heard a Pat Martino album and therefore I don't like jazz. Well, jazz is broader than that, and
Yeah.
it doesn't all have to be people stood in a club. There was nothing that didn't exist for this, right?
No.
People would go and see this in a club, but it wouldn't be full of musicians folding their arms
No,
watching
it would
what's
be
happening.
it would be young people, old people. There'd be dancing, there'd be chatting, there'd be smoking, there'd be everything. It was proper club night out. People went to see these things because they wanted a real good night out, and they wanted to hear the music and they wanted to react to the music. Like because they couldn't pop on the internet, couldn't pop on YouTube and just listen to somebody. That was their whole,
Yeah.
you know, that was a big treat for them. So yeah, there wasn't, and to be honest, I think that's probably why, as someone who, I would just like to state that I love jazz, I think that's why part of me gets put off by certain discussions around jazz, because I can't stand that pretentious fart sniffing, as Mike would say. Fart sniffing, let's all go to a jazz gig, sit with our arms crossed.
That's one of my favourite things to do.
Nope. I would much rather, and that's the thing, like, am I allowed to say that? I'm probably going
Say
to say
whatever
something.
you like.
Okay. So there's a couple of different jazz clubs in Glasgow, and I happen to think, and you can disagree with me if you want, I happen to think one of the best music venues in Glasgow is Swing Limited. Swing Limited is a music venue that not only plays a broad spectrum of like roots music and music of black origin, but also they pay all of their musicians and they look after all their musicians.
Well, I was going to say, you would also say that because you have a residency there.
Absolutely. But the other side of it is there is a couple of other jazz venues in Glasgow, and I think that is part of it. You know, you go along, you go downstairs, and it's a bunch of pretentious people who are like, that's the conversation. That's a whole conversation. And yeah, I think when I listen to stuff like this, it's joyful. It's joyful. They're playing the song, and I listen to Pat Martino too, and I love Pat Martino.
You do? Yeah.
And there's plenty other. In fact, I like Mike Stern. I said it. I'm sorry.
That's so funny because literally at the end of the last stream you said I don't like Mike Stern.
I know, but
and
then
we went in the house and we watched that Blu-ray and you totally
but we
won.
watched it and I actually thought it was
I'm going to pull you back to
fantastic.
HK's question here. So is
Sure.
it bad if a vocalist has a lot of saliva as they sing?
Saliva, no. Phlegm, yes. So saliva really is just, you know, that's for when you're eating, or if you're very, very hydrated, you might have a lot of saliva. That's not an issue. But if you have a lot of phlegm, so if you've had a lot of dairy products, if you've had a lot of like just very sort of fatty products, and then you go to sing, that phlegm gets in the way of your vocal folds, and what you'll find is you'll go up to sing a higher note and your vocal folds will just collapse. So see that noise you make sometimes when you're singing and it kind of like or and there's like a little sort of twist. It's just your vocal folds collapsing. Phlegm does that.
I'm going to interrupt. We're currently listening to Louis Armstrong doing his scat singing. He claims to have invented scat singing.
Oofed.
Claims to have invented it. It's, he had a story behind it. It was he was on a gig and he dropped the lyric sheet.
Right.
So didn't have the lyrics. So just started singing over the top of something like he was a trumpet, and that was how scat was invented.
Sure.
Whether there's any truth to that or not, that's up for debate. But he's definitely synonymous with it.
He popularised
and he's great
it.
at it.
I mean, we can't turn around and say that James Brown invented funk. We can, but we also can't, because lots of other people were involved in that evolution. He was definitely, a forefather, so it's the same with that. I mean, the thing is, I think Louis Armstrong's scatting was fabulous. I think Ella kicks his ass on any day of the week.
Sure.
But yes, I mean, I feel like that's something you have to learn as a singer, to be wholly prepared. The amount of times where I've lost my lyrics, forgotten them, didn't know what was going on, the band did something I wasn't aware of, and I've scattered my way out of many a situation. And I am not a jazz singer.
Yeah. Another question for you. So do you do lip trills to clear phlegm, or do you prefer another technique?
Unfortunately, the technique I prefer is to not have lots of cheese. Unfortunately. No, but in all seriousness, if you are dealing with a lot of phlegm, I would cut out dairy. And also, when you're going to do your warm-ups, your lip trills or any of your scales, have some warm water, nothing but warm water, nothing in it, no lemon, none of that nonsense, just warm water. And it should help clear it as you're warming up. But it is a case of avoiding too much dairy, unfortunately, which is a shame because we all love cheese.
We've just moved on to Mood Indigo. This is the most popular track on the album by a long stretch. As of now, it has 16 million streams on Spotify.
Whew.
Compared to Cottontail, which I really enjoy Cottontail, that's only had 112,000. So this is, a popular one. And it has the Sidney Bechet, melody.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
No. Because now it's going into this. It's the other thing that I love about Duke Ellington as well, is that he's got all of these songs that he's part of, and he's either composed them or he's co-composed them, blah, blah, blah. He's put them together, and sometimes he's just hanging out in the background, just letting the harmony ring out, playing one chord.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That kind of, and we've not really got to enjoy any of it for this, and we should probably do maybe some Glenn Miller stuff in future, because the big band thing, with a big horn section, arranging for a brass in a jazz ensemble like that is an art. And when you look at anyone out there that you might consider to be the modern names of jazz, and I say modern, the guys that I'm into. So let's throw Pat Martino out, right? Great. Or Mike Stern, or whoever it happens to be. These are guys that have written some great tunes. But it's a different thing entirely to write a great tune and then arrange it for a full horn section.
Yeah.
In an authentic sound.
Sure.
And often, guys would work with arrangers in order to get that. There's a skill there, and it's not something I can do either. I'd like to put a lot more time into doing that, because big brass section like that, absolutely beautiful. Or Count Basie, yeah, of course. Probably not a count either. Is there a third in this style, like General something or other? General Barrington. Okay, so here's a question. Gorgeous playing. Love this style of cool jazz. I guess it's cool. Would we call this cool jazz?
I think that unfortunately that leans on what you consider to be cool.
Yeah.
I think it's cool jazz. I would class this as vintage jazz, but that's for my own categorization. Don't take that as, as the rule. Queen Latifah.
Also, don't think she's a queen.
She is absolutely a queen. Don't you dare speak ill of Queen Latifah. Once you've seen Queen Latifah in Chicago, you shut your whore mouth from there forward.
John Kirby.
Another thing I would say about scatting as well is a lot of singers talk about the sort of the words they're supposed to use when they scat, because of course there are no words when you scat. You're just supposed to make them up. I think the thing with Louis Armstrong is he always used a lot of very open, wide vowels. So it was ba do da da da. So they were always very wide and open. Yeah. Which is honestly most of the scat singers that I listen to it's all do's, ba da do 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 da 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 da, that, not like ba 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 ba. Sure. So I think that when making that stuff up, Bobby McFerrin is a really good frame of reference, because he talks about just exercising your tongue and then doing any scatting over that, just making that whole vowel thing up.
Can I answer this question here? So I thought it was named cool jazz as it's not hectic and less choppy. Yes, if you talk about the traditional usage of the term cool jazz, you're talking as a kind of like a post-bebop thing where, Miles Davis, The Birth of the Cool. Yeah?
Yeah.
That is absolutely a less choppy thing. It's playing, it's deliberately playing in a style that's very different from what people are used to hearing. With something like Mood Indigo, it would be easy to look at something like that and go, if a song was slow before bebop, is it still cool jazz? It's silly to put titles on these things.
Yeah.
It's jazz. To me, when I listen to all of this stuff, this all just fits under the category of swing and big band swing. That's what I think of Duke Ellington's music as being.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, there's a division between hot jazz and cool jazz, yeah, which actually relates to East Coast and West Coast. Such a lovely voice.
I mean, his vibrato, you could drive a bus full of nuns, a lorry, plane through. Is that? It's like I can't even almost struggle to replicate it. It's so wide. It's so wide.
The thing I guess I find really interesting about his voice and the singing is, obviously you're a vocal teacher. You teach people how to sing.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell do you cope if someone says, I want to sing like Louis Armstrong?
Never happens. It never happens. No one has ever come to me and said, I want to sing like Louis Armstrong. That being said, like I know I mentioned Tom Waits earlier on, and I'm sure you had to internally rolled your eyes. The thing with Louis Armstrong is his voice, if you're not sure what kind of voice you want to have in jazz, is imitatable. It's, you go to anyone, do a Louis Armstrong impression, and most people will do that.
Yes.
That impression of him.
And I think to myself.
Everyone does it. Everyone does it. So I guess, with people like Tom Waits, I'm not saying that Tom Waits, deliberately just imitated Louis Armstrong, but it's one of those voices. It's got all that gravel on it. It's got that wide vibrato. It's very conversational. Louis Armstrong's never singing in a huge range either. You're never hearing Louis Armstrong do like a note and then jumping up 2 octaves. This does not happen. So yeah, I think, it's one of those, it's been imitated and then sort of evolved from there, because Tom Waits doesn't sound like Louis Armstrong anymore, that's for sure. And halfway through his career, he didn't either, but it was a good starting off point.
Few comments. So I like these jokes about, well, what about Chicago? That's not East or West, so we're giving that the title of temperate jazz. Sometimes it's hard to know where to get started with jazz, but this kind of stuff seems perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point of these streams, man.
Yeah.
It's to help people find a way into it. I always found the best place to learn about or to get into a style is to find out where it came from and then follow its evolution through history. Don't jump in with modern. Get there. And then the guitarologist, good to see you on, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Not sure if you can talk about jazz and leave out New Orleans. Well, of course, Louis Armstrong, New Orleans born. And we did Sidney Bechet last time, New Orleans. The birthplace of blues and jazz. I would agree with all of that. But then, of course, it went out and it expanded. And Louis Armstrong, I keep giving out all these facts about Louis Armstrong like I'm his biggest fan, and that's not strictly the case. But he wouldn't perform in New Orleans for a very, very large portion of his career because they had a segregation policy. Black musicians couldn't play with white musicians. It wasn't until late in the 50s that he, or maybe even very late 50s, early 60s, that he would go and play in New Orleans. So.
Wow. I think that's kind of another side of this music that kind of it makes you sort of think about when you listen to it, is the fact that this was music that was up and coming when it was potentially the worst possible time to be a black person in America.
I don't know about that. I think 100 years before this was probably worse.
Sure, you know what I mean, though, if you want to be a performer, though, because there were so many performers around who were, being exploited by the music industry at this point, if it wasn't stealing, absolutely like robbing the graves of black people for music, it was having them compose or perform for other white musicians.
Great comment here. So it's a shame that jazz isn't more popular today. It's a great genre. I agree with you on that, and I think the way that we change that, you're never going to change it. We try and keep it alive, by things like this, by sharing the music with people. But I think that the reality of the reason that jazz died is it stopped being music for the general public and it became academic music. It became music
Absolutely, it did.
Yeah, and I love all of that side of jazz, but this stuff is very different to that.
But that's something that I think it makes me sad when I hear people going, oh, I don't really like jazz, I don't really like the pretentiousness, and I don't really like this, that, and the next thing about it. And I feel that really, really hard because, I've been in plenty of jazz venues where, someone scoffed at something I'm supposed to know and I've not known it. It's like, no, that's not how this works. Music is actually for everyone. And I think the thing that I find the most laughable about it is going into jazz venues, in particularly Central Belt Scotland, where you go into jazz venues to listen to jazz music and there's just a bunch of academic, very middle-class white people talking down to everybody else about jazz, and it's like, we need to rearrange that. Something's went wrong somewhere along the line. I think, this stuff's wonderfully accessible, I guess. It is a shame, though. Yeah.
I don't think there is, there's no reality whereby a gig of this is happening and there's people there with their arms folded.
No. That being said, as much as, it's a shame that jazz is not as popular now as it would have been, and Levi's right, it's definitely become more for academics than anything. I do think it's managed to seep its way into a lot of popular music, because I wouldn't consider her a jazz musician, but Amy Winehouse was definitely singing from a hymn sheet that was definitely close to Ella's and Billy's. In fact, sometimes she was straight up just doing a Billie Holiday impression. So yeah, it's sort of made its way out a little bit, which is nice.
Yeah, I don't think the old jazz isn't dead, it just smells funny thing. Jazz isn't dead. Jazz never died. It evolved and evolved and evolved, and different elements of it seeped off into other areas. And I guess maybe, I don't want to put words in Pablo's mouth. Maybe what he's saying there is that this.
Sure.
Because again, it's a great genre. Well, and a genre is a very broad thing. There's a lot of jazz I don't like,
Sure, same.
Nice. Those are my guitar licks there. Bum, bum, ba, da, 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 da. And really, the thing I've learned now from learning piano is all of the cool licks that I play on guitar that I think are cool licks. They're just piano licks. It's funny because when I was a younger musician, trumpet was an instrument I didn't really enjoy. Maybe enjoy is the wrong word. But I was so into sax players because of how just outrageous they were in terms of improvisation and virtuosity would be that does factor into it. But as I've grown, I'm not saying I like the saxophone less. That's absolutely not the case. But I love a trumpet now.
I mean, all of these instruments, you know, these people like Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet, they were sort of my...
This is my favourite Duke song. Carry on.
They were sort of my riff teachers as a singer. So when I was looking around for things to copy that would be really, really tricky to try, I did try and start with Charles Mingus, but I was living in a fool's paradise. So I dialed it back and I went to Sidney Bechet and Louis Armstrong and a lot of the players from then to imitate like Ella, because, you know, that's what she did.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Okay. Oh, I have gone in the B section. I'm not singing. You're the singer.
I should point out for anyone who's interested in scat singing at any point, I know some of you are probably sitting and watching and going, absolutely not, Melissa, don't talk utter drivel. But if you are and you want to try it, as I said, Bobby McFerrin is a very good placeholder for stuff like that. But one of the exercises that he talks about,
up in Harlem,
is not doing that.
Anywhere in Harlem.
You want to keep going?
No.
Is instead of doing that very wide stuff that Louis is doing, so bap, 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 that, is to use really small vowels like bidla and didla. Bidla?
Bidla diddler.
Bidla diddla.
Make sure you throw the bebop in there. Bebop. Bebop.
No, absolutely not. Bebop is an awful thing to throw into that. Bidla and didla. They're your friends if you want to try and scat.
Yeah, man. You get red beans and rice, it's very nice.
We've lost Levi, that's it, he's gone. He's surrendered to the music.
I did do a little bit of reading on, because I think Louis Armstrong comes across as really cool.
Sure.
His voice and the conversational side of the way he sings, it's very laid back. The stories of him meeting famous people, like the Pope, yeah, and the way he would deal with people like this. He didn't believe in rank.
I love that.
Yeah, there's. I'm sure there was a. He referred to the Pope as Daddy.
That's
not in a sexual way.
I didn't mean that. Yeah. That's transcendent.
Hello,
just
Paul
going
Gale.
up to
How's
the
it going?
Pope. Hi, Paul.
I should get the exact quote on that. But
imagine going up to the Pope and being like, "Hi, Daddy."
So there are definitely elements or moments in Duke's compositions where he does get to play piano and like really play licks and stuff. But generally speaking, you know, he's writing compositions and he's leaving the improvisational side of things to horn players and to clarinet players. And here we go, some licks. I'm going to look for that Louis Armstrong Pope quote.
I really hope you guys are listening to this at home because it is so beautiful. And now we have a drum solo. What do we think of drum solos? I actually really enjoy them.
I love drum solos.
I really enjoy them.
Okay, yeah, I got it. It's in here.
What is it you're looking for?
The quote, the Pope quote.
The Pope quote.
Yeah. He and his wife met Pope Pius XII in 1949. The Pope was such a fine little old fella, you know. Oh, he welcomes you so nice. My wife had to put on a veil. She sure was cute. So the Pope said, "Have you any children?" I said, "No, Daddy, but we're working on it."
Oh, I love Louis Armstrong just a little bit more for that one.
Yeah.
Duke is kicking off right now. Okay, I love this. And it's that jazz that gets played in a lot of noir films from that period. Casablancas and the like. Oof.
Really nice arranging of the... Is that a recorder on the top?
So not just a clarinet?
Potentially, but it feels very... That high note feels very... I can only see someone...
With a recorder.
Playing a recorder. For me, and I talk to my students about this, drums are the lifeblood of making your swing sound good. When you listen to a jazz drummer take a solo just on a snare drum, they have to do so much. They can't just... Rhythm is not enough. Mm-hmm. It has to be dynamics. Sure. So even if you're just hitting the same rhythmic subdivision, ba 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 ba, you can't just go ba 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 ba, or even swing it ba 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 ba. You need to ba 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 ba, and you got to bring it to life like that. And when you listen to a jazz drummer play, it inspires me so much on a dynamic level. I always talk about with my students the idea of trying to make our lines more bubbly when we play. We don't want these flat dynamics. You want the lines to ebb and flow dynamically as well as in terms of the contour of the lines. And I pick a lot of that up from drummers. So drummers, I'll watch a drum solo.
Yeah, I like a drum solo.
It was Steve Smith initially that got me into taking drums more seriously.
His vibrato on the trumpet was almost as wide as his voice. Ugh. So beautiful.
It's even more beautiful when you really, at least for me, when I really think about not just the playing but the human aspect of what we're hearing there. At some point 70 years ago at least, there was a man sat in a room that made those sounds, and we just got a snapshot of that sound. Think about how many sounds he made that we didn't hear.
I don't want to think about that. It makes me sad. That being said, Duke Ellington has so many albums that I'm sure they captured a good range of what he has. As I said, I have it on record because I'm a pretentious fuck, but Duke Ellington has an album called Unknown Sessions, and there's no vocalist. He's not arranged for a vocalist. It is a really stripped back album for a sort of Duke album. Like, there's no big orchestra, and it's really, really beautiful. There's some really dark stuff on the second side of it. The latter part of the album, it's sort of leaning towards less of a performative jazz for the crowds they were playing to at this point, to a more composer feel of things. Now, I might be completely crazy. Did Duke do an album with Charles Mingus? Was there a crossover of
I have
some
no
of those
idea.
two? My brain has just flagged that up to me.
You're a much bigger Mingus fan than I am. So.
Well, Mingus is in my heart forevermore.
Peter's not on, and Kirk Whammett. I haven't seen Kirk Whammett, no. I've not seen the Kirk Whammett pop up in a long time.
Oh, they totally did. Yeah.
Yeah.
An album, Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, and Max Roach. Money Jungle, it's called. It's a studio album by Duke Ellington, Charles Mingus, and Max Roach.
I mean, Max is one of the most important names in bop drumming, so.
I definitely need to go and listen to that album. Because I'm too busy playing Roots and Blues and moaning on repeat for the rest of my life. And Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. Thanks, Dan. I had to Google it because my memory ain't what it used to be.
Money Jungle?
Yeah. Right. We should totally do a Mingus album. I think we should do a Mingus album.
Oh, it will happen. Not right now. Too early. way too early. I want to do a bunch of these jazz school videos.
Yeah.
It's fun. Because there will come a time where people will be able to go back and look at them from episode 1 all the way through and go, okay, this is the pathway that I should take to get to Alan Holdsworth. How's it going, Leon? Good to see you, man.
Hi, Leon. I'm also aware one of your favourite songs is coming up next.
Yeah.
And one of my favourite songs is everyone's Not Lucky for Everyone 13.
Yep, great song.
Oh, wow, Dan, that sounds amazing. It's like a fight in album form. That sounds fantastic.
Okay, yeah, so it don't mean a thing. To me, I think of this as being one of the most iconic jazz songs.
Yeah.
This is, because I like the message as well, you know?
Yeah.
I could say this to every one of my students. Come on, it don't mean a thing if I ain't got that swing.
Ooh.
It don't mean a thing if I ain't got that swing picking.
I think the thing I love about this track is it's it belongs to the family of songs in my head with roughly the same harmony as Minnie the Moocher and a whole bunch of other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Again, very performative jazz, getting the crowds involved.
Yes. Yeah.
If it ain't got that swing, do up, do up, do up, do up, do up.
Great voice.
Yeah.
Drums just they bring me to life. They really do. Yeah. And something magic about an upright bass, of course.
Yes. So I feel like this moves ever so slightly away from the more palatable stuff.
How do you mean?
Well,
You
I
think
think
this is less palatable?
I still think it's completely palatable, but I think when it comes to this kind of music in this album, and for these players, when they start doing songs like this, it feels like they're trying to be more dissonant than normal. Whereas before, they don't feel like they're trying to be dissonant. Does that make sense?
I actually just think it's the clarinet. I don't
Mm.
think there's anything particularly out in the horn.
No, I'm
This
not
is straight ahead.
sure, but in his vocals and his scatting,
Okay.
there's a lot of push and pull with what he's doing. Hmm.
Something also magical about that kind of everyone play thing.
Yeah.
It's that New Orleans.
That New Orleans Rami that I enjoy. Everyone play all at once, play whatever you want. Hmm.
Nice. Okay, on to Solitude. I mean, it's really missing some screaming electric guitar solos, if I'm honest.
Good God.
So it instantly sounds like Christmas.
That's because the tone of the upright that Duke's playing sounds like Charlie Brown upright.
I think what you did there, though, kind of highlights why jazz went the direction it did. You're a musician.
Yeah.
You're a very skilled musician.
Uh-huh.
And therefore, when you hear things like that, it's easy for the band to play things like that for someone like you, because they know that when they play something like that, it's going to make someone like you laugh. It's a
Sure.
joke for you type thing. And the more things like that start appearing in the music, the more people that are going to laugh at things start to be drawn into it. And before you know it, you've pushed out all the people that are never going to laugh. So
I guess.
you are responsible for destroying jazz.
That's
so.
what it is. It's sorry, guys. It's my fault. My fault. You can address all hate mail to just address it to Levi. I'll get it.
Another example, I think, when I listen to this, like ballad type things, super, super slow. And I try and imagine a guitar on this. We're getting to that point in the stream again where I start talking about how shit the guitar is. Like a guitar
There's
just
no
couldn't
guitar.
contribute anything here.
No. I mean, maybe like jazz guitar playing rhythm in the background, very slow.
Sure.
You gonna do a trumpet impression? Trumpet's it's a wider, squarer sound.
I'm not good at making sounds with my mouth, okay? Have you heard my accent? This accent comes from having the laziest mouth in the country. And I was going to say just people from where I'm from, but no, more specifically just me, the actual laziest mouth in the country, right here.
So many jokes, so little time.
Yeah. Are you not going to do some trumpet for us then? Yeah, there's a key there somewhere. Here you go. Have a couple more keys. Keep going.
No.
This is what we do.
It's a wider sort of like, so I think for any of you that saw it last time, Sidney Bechet, when I was talking about clarinet, I was talking about it being a round sound. Now, I'm just talking about my own way of categorising things, to be honest, when I'm talking about that. So, don't take that as a marker of anything. But I do think it's possibly the way that it's played that's making me feel that way. Because, of course, if you're playing a clarinet, you're piercing your lips more because you're going to be
I was
playing
really
on the
worried
reeds.
you just got stung by a bee there.
Is it not?
Yeah.
And then when you're playing trumpet, you're obviously having to sort of pierce your lips again, but it's more sort of through a sort of like a puckering sound. So when I hear the trumpet, it feels so much more wide and square.
Okay, so don't get around much anymore. You like this one?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
If I'm completely honest, it's because it was one of the first sort of big ballads that I heard, but I heard it from Harry Connick Jr.
Ah, of course.
He does a very beautiful slow version of it. Granted, that version was used for When Harry Met Sally, which I've never seen. I'm not interested. I don't like chick flicks. They bore me. But his version of it's stunning. And I did, of course, go back and look and then find versions like this and was like, oh, wow. I love it in all its forms. I probably will always love it mostly when it's Harry Connick Jr. just at a piano on his own, playing it very slowly, like ridiculously slow.
Speaking of Harry, Playground Sessions emailed me today.
Oh.
They've changed all their branding, all their logos and everything. I'm not going to say it's because of my video, because that would be ridiculous.
Okay.
But I did make sure, because I got the email, because we're members there. As soon as I got that email, I went on Canva and redid the thumbnail, so it has all their new branding on the video.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Don't get around much anymore.
Oh, actually, so something we've not said whilst listening to this is another reason I wanted to listen to this outing of Duke is because there's a singer. Mm-hmm. It highlights that fact that jazz isn't just instrumental music.
Sure.
And that most of the jazz standards that people play have lyrics. Mm-hmm. They were songs, pop songs.
Sure.
And that information gets lost on people. The first thing I make people do, students, when we're working on a new standard that they've maybe not heard before, is we want to go and listen to a couple of versions of it. Yeah. But we have to go and look for a version with a singer. Mm-hmm. Because it's the easiest way to remember a melody to a song is have an association with a lyric. If you're struggling to remember what the melody to like Misty is, but the first lyric, the first word is "Look at me, I'm as helpless as a kitten up a tree." If you've heard the song and you can associate those lyrics with the melody, will just pop into your head. Whereas if I just say, "What's the melody to Misty?" Which one's that? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
And the three songs on here that I've put a lot of attention onto: "Drop Me Off in Harlem," "It Don't Mean a Thing," and "Don't Get Around Much Anymore." These are all just very strong vocal songs, lyric-y songs. It's neither vocal nor lyric, but you know what I mean. Lead voice melody.
I think this piano part of "Don't Get Around It Much Anymore" is really, really beautiful. Harry Connick Jr. does copy it to a certain extent, but I realised last week that Art Tatum was actually one of Harry Connick Jr.'s big piano influences, as well as Duke.
Here they all go, which is fun. It's fun.
And that's it. That's all you're
Cocktease.
getting.
Ba da 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 da. We don't get the
Nope,
resolution.
you're not getting it.
Yeah, see? When I said look at me, you hear the
Yeah.
melody. You can't learn, jazz by reading the real book. Though it might be easier if in the real book they had lyrics. You just learned that there's a version of, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat with lyrics?
Oh, yeah. Oh, dear. I mean, the thing is, I am aware that I'm human and therefore biased and flawed at every possible step of the way. So when I went and I listened to Joni Mitchell singing the lyrics to Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, I was like, nope, not for me, Joni. I love you dearly, but go home. Go home and don't come back. That's just me being, pernickety because I love that song so much. But the lyrics are really important. Would it have helped me more so to get into the song if I'd had heard Goodbye Pork Pie Hat with lyrics before I heard ba-da, ba-da-da-da?
Well, I think
Maybe not.
that's actually a good example of kind of the genesis of the song being important. Sure, there are examples of songs that were written with melodies that lyrics were then added to at a later point. But I think with Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, that wasn't written with lyrics in mind, and it comes across that way when you listen to Joni Mitchell's lyrics. It's like this. It feels like through composed poetry nonsense rather than a song.
Slam poetry, can't be doing with it. Not interested. No shade to anyone that loves slam poetry or does slam poetry, but no.
I don't even like slams. So.
It's not a popular opinion, I realise, in this day and age. Slam poetry is very in. Don't get it.
There is like big old Satchel mouth.
Again, I'm really glad he was happy with that name because it feels really unfair and mean. I need to check.
What are you checking?
I need to check Louis Armstrong's range. Because I need to know.
Not a lot.
No, that's what I'm banking on, that it's probably like 2 octaves. Maybe.
Are you on the Wi-Fi out here?
Yeah, I think it's going to go. His head voice was incredible. He could reach an E flat. Blah, blah, blah. No,
Still, I think a lot of value in, taking something like this. I'm beginning to see the light. This horn solo. Learn it on guitar. Why not?
Yeah.
Or learn to sing it. Or play it on piano. Take the vocabulary. See how someone uses it. T-Bone Walker. Yeah.
Oh, what a bill that would have been. I would have a firstborn just to give it away to go to that.
I like this riff at the bottom. I feel like somebody should follow me around Tesco's when I'm shopping with a tuba playing this.
Shut up. I love as well is like sometimes when Duke was playing, he was just playing the harmony, he was just playing the chords, nothing else. He would play them so incredibly syncopated as to be completely out of time, but he still managed to make them fit. They still sounded like they should have been there as that.
It's me going to get some emergency ice cream.
Emergency ice cream. Emergency ice cream. This is no such thing. Emergency.
We're never going hungry in this house with this ass. I think I'm going to have to clip this part of the stream and upload it as its own little bit of Melissa having a hysterical fit, hearing about my emergency ice cream.
What's the emergency?
I need ice cream.
The emergency is I need ice cream. I'm sorry. Sorry, that just tickled me. Okay.
Okay, we've lost her. She's gone.
It's okay. I'm alright. I'm here. I'm fine. Everything's okay.
I mean, I think after the stream I am going to go get some emergency ice cream now just to...
What's the emergency?
I need ice cream.
So that's now going to be the theme tune for emergency ice cream.
The Tesco's tuba. Yeah.
There's a tuba in Tesco? I didn't realise.
You okay?
Yeah. It just really tickled me. Let's not talk about it because I'll start laughing again.
So if I have to throw some shade,
This album's too long.
but it's not. It's no longer than the Sidney Bechet album.
Yeah.
You know, I got into the virtuosic side of jazz because it engages me for a longer period of time.
Sure.
Whereas this more kind of middle of the road would have been very appealing to middle class white people at the time. It doesn't hold my attention in the same way. He's heard something about emergency ice cream. Come here, son. Up you come. You know, I want more up tempo.
Yeah.
And I want more singing to make it feel more like a song.
I think as well, because Louis Armstrong's range is so limited, I mean, he does a lot with it, but at the same time, after a while, you're just wanting that extra. I mean, I know I do.
Peter's finally online.
I want that extra push. Like, you know how sometimes when I'm listening to singers, I'm like, yeah, it was great, but they didn't do that one note I really wanted, which was just a tone above what they were doing, or something like that.
Interesting comment there.
A lot of jazz is meant to set a mood, not be a focus. It's like music to stimulate other activities and conversations. Sure, yeah. I think a lot of the instrumental
Hello, Ian.
stuff that a lot of the instrumental stuff that Sidney Bechet made was definitely supposed to be a mood setter, 100%.
Look at that little checker on the floor like that.
Check it. That was a paint me like one of your French girls moment.
The ugliest, fattest French girl.
No. Check it.
Brover's problem is that he's spent most of his life surviving off of emergency ice cream. You okay, bud?
This is beautiful. This is definitely a mood setter.
Yeah, I got you.
I definitely prefer Louis when he's doing a ballad. I got it bad. That's such a wide vibrato. Bad.
Got you.
Ooh. The other thing as well is like between me and a couple of singing friends, when we would do lessons for each other sometimes just to check in, and one of the things we would talk about all the time is clarinetting. We again, another thing that we made up, where basically the end of jazz singers use their vibrato in a completely different way. So as a lot of popular singers would use their vibrato, certainly at the end of a phrase, but it would be used as sort of, it would be closed off before you finish the phrase. With jazz musicians, not unlike Louis Armstrong, clarinetting, his vibrato is dead until he gets to the end of the line, and it cuts the line off as well. So it's like ba da 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 da. It only ever appears right at the end of the phrase.
You did that just for Ian, didn't you?
I didn't even see that, Ian.
Ian is the gentleman that we drove to pick up a box from his house.
Ah, okay.
Lives over in Motherwell. So sing more.
Okay. Is the song about to finish? It might be. Ba da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ba da. Ba da 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 da. Da 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 da. Ba da da da. Ba da da da.
So I know you're looking for more quotes and things for your Creative Scotland funding application. I think we've got one from Ian here.
What's that?
You have a voice like Galaxy Caramel.
Aw, thank you, Ian. I mean, that's me doing this. You should see me at Crow's gig, because then it becomes like Janis Joplin's got a chest infection and I'm just like wailing. No, that's not true. It's not all that. But thank you so much. I do try.
Here's an interesting question. What modern day song do you think can be turned into a new jazz standard? Like what Coltrane did with My Favourite Things, or use of songs like Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder. The answer to that question, Ricardo, there's a problem with it. The reason those songs could become jazz standards so effectively is because they had a lot of harmony in them. There was a lot to do with them, a lot you could do with them, whereas a lot of modern day songs that you can think of are a lot harmonically simpler. So it's hard. It's a hard one to say. I think that you could do it with so it's
My
not
Favourite Things is a fantastic album as well. Sorry I interrupted, but it is. My Favourite Things is.
It's not ones that I think can be turned into new jazz standards. Sorry, should be, but what can be. If you listen to like Disney soundtracks, you could probably do a lot with like. Okay, I'm going to throw one at you, right? Reflection from Mulan.
What?
Yep. Because it's a beautiful set of chord changes.
Sure, yeah.
Or How Far Will I Go from Moana?
No. Not How Far I'll Go. Nope. After having to teach that, hell no.
But the whole point is you throw away the song that you know, and it's just melody and improvisation on the chord changes.
Sure. I'm trying to think of something that's more modern that I would would be a good contender for like a standard. That's hard.
You are such a good boy.
Oh, he loves you so much.
You're getting old, aren't you, bud? We've had lots of adventures together. We've been in a lot of places, seen a lot of things.
Good boy.
Your adventures are coming to an end, aren't they?
No. Jesus.
I could totally go for an emergency Viennetta after this. Mint one, obviously.
Not a mint one.
You don't fuck around
It's
with
just
regular
like
Viennettas.
eating toothpaste. I don't want a mint Viennetta.
What?
I like an
How much
emergency
chocolate's in your toothpaste?
I tell you something though, HK. I am definitely gonna put that quote on like some press, like some EPK for myself. Melissa Kelly, like emergency Viennetta.
So, Guitarologist has said the Moana soundtrack is a masterpiece, and I'm going to dispute that because what am I going to point out?
Oh, okay.
What do I hate on that soundtrack?
You hate on that soundtrack. Well, first of all, you hate in lyricism or lyrics when someone rhymes a word with the same word. And is it shiny or
In shiny, he rhymes the word glitters with glitters.
yeah, glitters with glitters. I mean, the thing is,
And it really annoys me because it's such a good song.
yeah, the Moana soundtrack, the Moana soundtrack is like fantastic. I guess I'm just a bit jaded from it because I had to teach it for a while to some kids, and it drove me up the wall hearing how far I'll go sang in every key imaginable, despite the fact it was always in C. But yeah, it's there's a lot. I think there's a lot of musicals that have come out in recent years where the music on them is like out of this world. Also, this is kind of a bit geeky and a bit niche, but some of the music. So the 1980s film Heathers with Christian Slater and Winona Ryder, it got made into a musical. And the musical of it, the music in that is out of this world. It's fantastic. Granted, it's supposed to be all very commercial and poppy because it was set in the 80s, but yeah, some of the harmony in that is particularly good.
So beautiful, people. We are coming to the end of this album. What we are going to do after this is, in order to...
Pretty. So pretty.
And there's the end of the album. Yeah, beautiful. Really enjoyed it. I'm going to run credits while we talk. Big thank you to all of the names scrolling on screen. If you would like to join me on Patreon, link is in the description. You can support the channel for as little as $1. It's a great way to support the channel and help out. You can also head on over to the link in the description and check out one of my books. I have a lot of books available. Lots of cool stuff in exchange for supporting the channel. Access to my Facebook group, tab downloads, private streams, private lessons. Lots and lots of things that you could do, that you might want to do. And I would encourage you to do one of those things. It is helpful. Also, please do go and check out Melissa Kelly, the wonderful Melissa Kelly. She has a YouTube channel as well.
I do.
Uploading content. What I am going to do to close the stream out is I'm going to go to over to Spotify. I'm going to go on over to Melissa's last album with Melissa Kelly and the Smoking Crows, Devil's Luck. And I am going to... What do you think? What do you think of everything on here?
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing on here is quite the same as what we just listened to.
Not even close.
But laid back, we could go I Never.
Laid back. Yeah, I
Never.
Never.
Go Whiskey and Wine.
Whiskey and Wine's particularly laid back, yeah.
You want to hit Whiskey and Wine?
Sure.
Tell us the tale of Whiskey and Wine.
Whiskey and Wine, I went through a period of my music career where I was so frightened of scarcity of, being self-employed and being a musician that I took I never said no to anything. I did everything, you know. And at points, I was working 100 hours a week, and it was just that was the rig. But that really got to the point where it was driving me to insanity. And whiskey and wine is kind of about where I reached a point of like people going, Melissa, you seem a bit skittish today, or is everything all right? And it's like, is it any fucking wonder? And that's the main line of the sort of main line of the song that returns. Is it any wonder I drink whiskey and wine, which is a drink that I mix together. It's really tasty.
Okay.
I'm not drunk as hell, then I'm tired. If I'm not losing my mind, then I'm on fire. Ain't no half measures, ain't no
Dry as a rich tea biscuit.
Like it dry. That's what she said.
She rarely did.
Yeah, Ian, it absolutely is. And you know, it's one of those things where
can't get a copyright strike from my own girlfriend's music.
Yeah, I mean, I could try.
You could.
But I'm not going to. Aww. Yeah, I think it's one of those things when you're a musician. I'm sure there's plenty of people here who can relate. Yeah, you kind of you go to that point where you're just like, well, I want to be successful, and so I'm going to measure my status of success through how exhausted I am. And that's not the way to do it. Is it any wonder I drink whiskey and wine? I used to wish for better days. Now wishing it all just float away. And I also hate that guitar riff there. Every time I was like, please don't keep that in, I hate it. Like, no, it's fine. I'm like, no, it's not. Give me some silence.
Yeah, this is what you really need. You need to hook up with the guitarologist. Because you see the wee tick next to the name.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That means big YouTube channel.
Oh, okay.
I just checked, 123,000.
Oh, okay. Good for you. I know nothing about these things, so I'm like, hi. Everyone's my buddy. I have no idea what's going on half the time on these things. Or like the I tell lies like I'm fine. Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder I drink whiskey and wine? So this song as well, this was actually the first song that we recorded on the Crows album, because we did it all live tracking. And so this was day one, and on the run up to the beginning of live tracking, I had a massive chest infection. So by the time this day came round, I was really feeling positive, and I was like, I can do this. Only 4 weeks of recording, I can get through this. And this was the first song we started. So the bands were all set up, all in the same room, obviously. And then we started going, and then I realised how sick I was. And I just remember standing in that recording studio going, there's no way I'm going to get through this. I'm going to have to cancel.
Definitely posted some controversial stuff.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, you're here on Levi Clay's YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, I've danced with the devil, baby.
You sleep in a bed with him.
Is it any wonder? Is it any wonder? Are you trying to be Ella Fitzgerald? I drink whiskey and wine instead. Because that's all I'm ever chasing, is to try and be as melodically interesting as Ella Fitzgerald. It's never going to happen.
So yeah, there we go. I thought, why not throw in one of your songs at the end of the stream, just to encourage people to go and check out your stuff.
Please do. I mean, the thing is, the album that's up there is currently 3 years old. The band we've kind of moved on quite a bit now, and we're planning on making another album. Correction, I have written and finished that album. We're just waiting to get the funding to record it.
You've got to stop with this we nonsense.
I do it a
lot. Because it gives the impression that it's a band rather than it being you.
Yeah, I'm bad for that. It is just me. Because then people kind of go, oh, arrogant motherfucker, she thinks she can just do it all on her own. I know I can't do it all on my own. But yeah, so I do tend to say we a lot. I have finished the album. The album is finished. I wrote it actually just as lockdown started. I finished it, and then I was like, oh, the world ended. Never mind. Moving on. I'm going to go get some emergency ice cream.
Definitely need an emergency Viennetta.
That's one of my favourite girls. Honestly, that's so good.
Yeah, so that's going to be us for the evening. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys.
Thank
and
you,
a
guys.
big thank you to HK for your
HK.
generous donation. It's every little bit is appreciated. Yeah, keeps the lights on and all of that stuff. Anything you'd like to add to people?
Yeah, if you get the chance, definitely go and check out Duke Ellington's album Blues in Orbit. I think it's fantastic. And if you are lucky enough to be in a charity shop or a second-hand record store and they have a copy of Unknown Sessions, buy it immediately, because it's not on Spotify, and it's just a wonderful album to have. So,
Okay, cool. We'll be back for another stream, I would imagine, next week at some point, where we will delve further into the land of jazz. And I think we're probably going to do Django.
Yeah.
Because
I was definitely up for Django, but I was like, oh, but Duke Ellington. And now that I can't remember who it was, I'm so sorry, was it Paul? Somebody mentioned John Coltrane as well. My Favourite Things. That's a fabulous album. So many good albums, so little time. Also, please go over to my YouTube channel and say hello.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that because I'm terrible at these things.
Yeah. So we'll get your insight on the Django thing, seeing as it's the music of your people.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yes, it is the music of my people, but yeah, I think it's one of those things where, so my nana, being the matriarch of my mother's side of the family and being a cantankerous old, I was going to use a slur there and I'm not going to, because even though I can get away with it, it's not fair, because other people find it offensive. She's a Roma gypsy with a lot of very, very strong opinions, particularly around who I was allowed to marry and live with and all the rest of it. One thing she was never offended by, me being a musician as a career. Everyone else is like, get a proper job. And she's like, that's a proper job. Because of course in Roma community, it's absolutely a real job. It's a real job.
Yeah. So you've done well in turning it into a real job. Anyway, Melissa Kelly, until next time. Are you not going to say it?
Oh, did I get to say it again?
Yeah, you can say it.
Bye, fuckers. Sorry, Mike. I'm not trying to steal your job.